Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for the Believe in Hawks episode. Hawks lose tonight in double overtime to their arch rival, the Miami Heat, 117-111 in State Farm Arena tonight. Big loss for the Hawks as this pretty much seals their future for the play-in, going to Chicago first and having to win that must-win game before going into the winner of the 7-8 matchup, whoever that could be right now. It's Sixers-Heat, but obviously you never know if things could change. So, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the game, talk about what's happening, talk about Trae Young being cleared, almost back to returning, talk about latest Trae Young, Dejounte rumors as well on the pod today. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Subscribe, like the video, leave a review, leave a rating. Y'all know what it is. So tonight's game, Hawks tonight, like I said, lost in double overtime to the Heat. In a game where we lost Jalen Johnson once again. Jalen Johnson goes out with another ankle injury. He needs to change his shoes, and he needs to get an ankle brace. And that just has to be the case until he can play without injuring his ankle. Ankle injuries are always kind of tricky because you never know. Is it just bad luck? Is it his shoes? I remember Trae Young went through a period where he had some nagging ankle injuries, and so he started wearing an ankle brace to help stabilize his ankle, and he really hasn't had an ankle injury really since then. So maybe that's something Jalen has to do. Jalen's missed about a week and a half with ankle injuries usually, so I'm curious to know if he'll miss time and how much time will he miss. Obviously, the play-in is next week, so you would assume that since that's a must-win, do-or-die game, Jalen Johnson will at least be back by then, unless he is still in pain that he can't play through. So, but I'm just saying in general, we would assume Jalen Johnson would be back by then, ready to go. But like I said, it was tough. And then tonight's game, you could really feel the loss of Jalen Johnson in the overtimes, where the Hawks just ultimately lost energy and ran out of gas. They pretty much tonight, they just, especially in that second overtime, no one could hit a shot. They only had one made basket in the overtime. And the thing about when Jalen Johnson's out with the injuries that they've had, one thing that I've mentioned is that they pretty much are relying on three guys to score the ball. Bogey, DeJounte, DeAndre Hunter. And then you hope that you get enough from Vic, Garrison, Bruno, Clint, those guys to win games. You want the game to obviously be lower scoring because that's what the game suits for. And tonight, if you think about the game and how it went, they were able to get back into the game in the second half, really stepped up their defense and was able to get stops on Miami. Miami's biggest issue is their offense. So it's not necessarily surprising that they were able to kind of figure some stuff out defensively and be able to slow down Miami's offense, which let them get back into the game. And then it was just kind of a back and forth game all the way going into overtime. One of the issues I think reared its ugly head tonight was you had Bogey did not have a good night at all offensively tonight. He did not do anything offensively tonight for them. He also started, especially like late in the game, overtime, saw him started kind of passing up some shots, saw him kind of not being aggressive with the ball. He would get into the paint, had a turnover trying to get it to Clint. He was being kind of passive at one point, which, usually for Bogey, he's not the most passive person unless there's an obvious play there to be made. For tonight, it seemed like he had some looks that he could have took and decided to be passive in that situation. So that was a bit of a interesting decisions that he made as the course of the game at the later stages. But realistically, you had DeJounte, who had a triple-double tonight. So you hear that and think, oh, yeah, DeJounte Murray had a triple-double. Oh, okay. He had a pretty good game tonight. 29 points, 13 rebounds, 13 assists. Okay. Like, all right, DeJounte had a pretty good game tonight. Did what he needed to do, but look at the actual numbers. 12 of 31. 3 of 12 from 3. Not an efficient night. Again, the Heat kind of did what the Portland Trailblazers did about a month ago, where they kind of dictated things defensively to make DeJounte kind of be the person. Because I could definitely see teams with the lineup when Jalen especially is out the game going with the approach of we aren't really worried about everybody else. So what we're going to do is that we're going to let DeJounte take shots because DeJounte isn't the most efficient player in the world. and we're going to make sure we keep the other guys. And especially when Jalen goes out, Vic is not looking to shoot. Vic only took 3 shots tonight. He was 0-3 tonight. And but for the most part, he wasn't looking to take shots tonight. So he's not a threat offensively. And Clint Capella just isn't a threat offensively. He only had 6 points tonight. So realistically, you already got 2 guys who are not a threat naturally offensively. So the only people you really got to worry about is Bogey and DeAndre. DeAndre heated up in the third quarter, but went cold again as the game ended. And then Dejounte started to become cold. He hit like a shot here and there in the fourth to kind of help and do some good things, but he just never was like in a full rhythm tonight when we needed him most. And then ultimately that was led to what, you're not able to get enough baskets, and then you get into that second overtime and you're unable to just carry it home. You're unable to get it home because you just don't have enough. One criticism I did see tonight was Quinn not making substitutions, probably seeing that his players are tired, are gassed, and not saying, well, let's give someone else some run. I think it's one of those decisions for a head coach in those situations where usually most teams will stick with their starting rotations through as many overtimes as possible. Unless you have a very reliable 6-man that you definitely trust. You kind of saw it with Nate McMillan last year, where if there was overtime games, he would kind of switch between Bogey. He'll maybe go Bogey at 3, DeAndre at 3, kind of, and we would switch it up a little bit. This was definitely a game tonight where I could have seen them definitely using Bruno tonight. But again, Quinn to me is a guy who's just going to ride his starters. And as much as we hate it, that's what he's going to do. He's just going to be like, we got to battle through it. I mean, because the Heat basically kept the same 5 guys in the game for both of their quarters, pretty much. Smith, Butler, Hero, Bam. For the most part, they pretty much Jokic. I mean, that's pretty much who they kept out there. But the thing is that, really the only guy in that 5 guys I just mentioned who can't really score the ball is Hayward Highsmith, which he's improved. But he's the only guy you're not really scared of. Jokic is younger, but he can score the ball. Jimmy, we know what he can do. Tyler, we know what he can do. And Bam, we know what he can do. Where the Hawks, like I said, you only had 3 guys who can really score the ball tonight when you're finishing with that type of lineup. So, yeah, that kind of reared its ugly head. And I felt people felt like, again, Bruno could have played. Garrison Matthews could have played. I know there's been times where people have kind of felt like Quinn will ride Bogey a lot. And it's just like, listen, dude, you don't have to. You have other guys who can do what Bogey does. Listen, we're not in the X's and O's. We don't know what goes through Quinn's head when it comes to those decisions. He may feel like in those situations, like some coaches do, we keep Bogey out there, and all it takes for him is to make a couple of shots because he has that type of ability, and then that could end up going well for the Hawks. But then there's always the downside of, well, we've seen him struggle for the first 3-4 quarters. What makes us think he's going to turn on in overtime? So it's definitely a fine line that you'll always question a coach on, just because it can go either way. And overall, so I think it's one of those things where it wasn't ideal tonight to see that. And like I said, you ran out of gas against the Heat, and you lost the game, which was, like I said, a big game because it hurts you now. It pretty much guarantees that you will go to Chicago and play them in the first game of the play-in in Chicago. So obviously that's not ideal, realistically, in that situation. So, it also, because the Hawks had a great opportunity tonight with the Bulls struggling to get back to tied at 9th, but obviously that just changes things. Pretty much Hawks have to win out, and Bulls will have to lose 2 of the next 3 for them to be able to get into the play-in as the team that will host in the first game. If not, we know what our fate is next Wednesday, and we'll be going to Chicago. But overall tonight, one observation I have made from watching this team is the offense ever since that Boston game has just seemed off. It's just, I don't know if you guys have watched it, but it just seems like they're off. It doesn't seem fluid. It doesn't seem like DeJounte hasn't had that big game since that game. Bogey's been very hit and miss. He had a big game against Milwaukee, and then he's been kind of hit and miss. I know DeAndre's had some decent games, but he's also had some end games. Jalen, he's had some end games. He's had some games where he struggled. It's like the offense really hasn't been that great since the Celtics game. And then you've also had that kind of bleeding into your defense a little bit and seeing the Hawks defense struggle over the last few games as well. Obviously, Denver, they left 142. Milwaukee let up 120. Just not good performances in these games. So, you kind of have to look at that and kind of think, well, what is going on with the Hawks defensively and offensively right now? Because that has been an issue. They just have not seemed fluid at all. And right now, the Hawks are not playing their best basketball as we get closer to the end of the season, which is not ideal when you're getting into a do or die game next Wednesday. So something that, Quinn will have to figure out. Now, in saying that, help is on the way. Trae Young has been cleared by doctors. He does not have the brace. If you watched the game tonight, he did not have the brace on tonight. He was out tonight because some people wondered if he would play immediately since he's played for team content in practice. Some people wonder, will he come back tomorrow against the Charlotte Hornets? We'll see. They'll probably release the injury report early tomorrow. And so we'll probably have an idea if he's even going to be ruled, if he's going to be questionable or he's going to be ruled out. Like I said, Chris Haynes said he's aiming for one of these games in these last two home games, which is now the last home game tomorrow. Or if not, he'll probably be back for the last two games of the season. So obviously, with that being said, the Hawks, are going to get Trae Young some run before the play-in. It's just a matter of when he's going to play realistically. So that to me is going to probably be your biggest question right now across the board with Trae Young. And I think these last few games as well have kind of made me feel like, in a way, that, yeah, we kind of do need Trae Young. It's like when you lost Trae, you improved a little bit defensively, but you got worse offensively. You kind of became average in both. Then when Trae played, you were great offensively, but bad defensively. It's funny how this team, it always averages out. And that's why they're like the ultimate mid team. Because everything averages out. They can never just be great and good in something. It's like they're great in something, they're really bad in the opposite of that. And, for the Hawks, with Trae Young, those 20, 30 points he gets us a game could very much be used right now. Tonight's game was an example of a game that I could sit here and say, man, it'd been nice to have Trae tonight. Someone else just to be able to score the ball. If Dejounte or, Bogey didn't have it going. I mean, obviously, if Trae was playing, Bogey might have not even been out there. So Trae Young would have been out there. So that would have probably, what you would assume, would be a positive trade-off. But, overall, you wish the best for him. Obviously, I don't think Okongwu, because this was definitely also a game that I know usually against the Miami Heat, Okongwu could have big games. This would have been a game for him tonight. Still have no idea if he's going to even be ready to go by playing next week. He's supposed to be reevaluated this week. So if not playing this week, we will know by next week if he can give it a go. Again, we don't know how seriously Quinn is taking the play-in games in terms of, obviously it's the postseason, so it's the last game of your season, but like in do or die games. But are you like, all right, let's just screw it, let's play and just see what happens. Screw it, let's play so and see what happens. And like I said, we'll have to see if Jalen's going to be good to go by then too. I would assume he would be, but we'll have to see if the ankle injury was bad or, is it something worse than we expected, and things of that nature. So, that's to me the big thing that we have to keep an eye on moving forward for the Hawks, and just trying to see what happens, man. So, like I said, tough loss tonight against the Heat for sure. Tough loss tonight. But overall, in the NBA, let's take a look at the overall standings as we are in the last week of the NBA regular season. If you look at the Eastern Conference right now, sitting at number one, clinching home court throughout the playoffs with the best record in the lead, the Boston Celtics at 62-17. Milwaukee tonight had a scare. Giannis non-contact injury, reportedly from Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams. It is a calf strain, but they are doing an MRI to test the calf and the Achilles. That is the part right there that could scare Bucks fans, is the Achilles. If something is wrong with that Achilles, whoever gets that 7th seed is probably looking at the Bucks as barbecue chicken. If they keep that 2 seed and they're like, oh, we're beating them. like Heat or the Sixers looking at them, like the Sixers have won 6 in a row since Embiid's been back. If they get back, if they get them, they're beating the Bucks. I'm taking the Sixers. I'm taking the Sixers in that series. If that's the 2-7 matchup. Even the Heat, because it's the Heat, man. They get the postseason, they act like a different team. But you know, right now, that injury to Giannis makes the Bucks the most fraudulent team in the playoffs out of the top 4 teams, and also makes them look like a team that is very, very just, that is the team you want to play because you don't believe you can beat them. But the Knicks still have a chance to catch them, so Knicks might get 2. They're third currently in the conference behind them, a game behind the Bucks. The Orlando Magic, one of the surprise teams of this year, not sitting at 4, tied with Cleveland. That looks to be potentially your 4-5 matchup. Indiana also has the same amount of wins, but one more loss than the Cavs and the Magic, so they're a half game back. But they're battling for potentially that 4-5 matchup. And then, like I said, the Sixers have won 6 in a row at the 7th spot. Pacers are 6. 76ers 7th right now. They've won 6 in a row. They just need Indiana to trip up over these next couple of games, and then it could be Indiana and Miami in the play-in with the Sixers playing potentially the Bucks or the Knicks as the 3-6 matchup. Miami is currently 8th right now, and then obviously 9 and 10 are the Bulls and the Hawks in the Eastern Conference. In the Western Conference, Timberwolves right now, big game for Ant tonight. 50-plus points for him. Continues to have a great season. Timberwolves sitting 1 in the Western Conference right now. The Denver Nuggets also a half game back. They're 2nd in the Western Conference right now. They've been jockeying for the number 1 spot in the West. And the Thunder as well are 3rd, a full game back of Minnesota, half a game back of Denver. They're jockeying, like I said, for the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. So that will be a tight finish for the Western Conference. The Clippers, number 4 in the Western Conference. They've won 3 in a row. They've kind of picked it back up after a couple of losses. They're looking for, it looks like we're going to get a very exciting 4-5 matchup. Mavericks at 5, winners of 4 in a row right now. We get to see Luka has never beaten the Clippers in a playoff series, so they may get another round at this next year. That should be a very exciting first round matchup. Suns right now are sitting in 6, 1 game out of, they're actually tied for 6 with the Pelicans, but have the tiebreaker. Pelicans are 7th, so they're jockeying to not be in the play-in and potentially go ahead and get a potential matchup against either the Thunder, Nuggets, or Timberwolves potentially in the first round. Pelicans 7th tonight. Kings blowing a 20-point lead tonight. They're 8th. That pick's not looking likely, and it's looking like the Kings may not even make the postseason this year. So those are the ramifications that the Kings will have if they don't make it. The pick will not go to Atlanta. Lakers currently playing right now as I'm recording this against the Warriors, who both are 9th and 10th in the Western Conference. Rockets were just eliminated a couple of games ago by the Warriors. And so those are your 10 seeds as we are in the final home stretch, the final 5 days of the regular season here before we get into postseason action. So that is the update there with both conferences right now. So this takes me back to Hawks news. What else about? So Mark Stein Bleacher Report released an article quoting Mark Stein, or getting a report from Mark Stein, that the Hawks, again, are going to likely trade DeJounte Murray or Trae Young this offseason. Obviously, that created a lot of discourse on Hawks Twitter again, as this is something that I think a lot of people have been expecting to come to a head potentially this offseason with their making that decision. People are wondering, because of the information and the wording of the use of the word or, meaning or Trae Young or DeJounte Murray, people are worried, are the Hawks really going to potentially pull the trigger on trading Trae Young? I gave my thoughts on it earlier on Twitter. You follow me on Twitter, Bryce_2K. I mentioned that one of the things that the Hawks say they've been committed to since, just the whole regime change is development, especially with Quinn coming in. And if they truly are committed to that, trading DeJounte or Trae will be big in terms of that, because guys like Kobe Buffkin will get a bigger role and more time, which will help improve him, help with his development, help, just him take that next step as a player in the league. He showed some good things, but there's still some work there to be done with him, and that's to be expected. He's a young player with a lot of growth still left to do. So, trading one of them will, like I said, give him a bigger role. It could also open the door for AJ too, potentially, depending on what they want to do with that. I don't know what they want to do with the guard spot. I also mentioned that never forget what Sham said on the Jeff Teague podcast about Quinn and Trae having a good relationship and knowing that they need each other to win in Atlanta. And at the end of the day, Hawks are going to feel like they're going to try to make the best decision for the organization. People have discussed with Trae Young, you'll probably get more back for him than if you traded DeJounte. But then obviously you are trading the person who's been the face of your franchise for years. And I guess the face of your franchise would be either Jalen Johnson or DeJounte Murray. Really, right? Because right now, even with everything that's happened, we know Trae Young is the face of this franchise. So that is where I think people are debating if realistically Trae could be the person who's gone because of that. Which we'll find out. In this report, again, it's people close to the Hawks situation. Obviously people know people who may know people, so they're like, yeah, I'm hearing that they're gonna probably trade one. And listen, we don't know what the actual verdict will be till the actual offseason gets here. I'm sure we're going to hear more rumors once the season ends. I wouldn't be surprised if we get an article after the Hawks season ends from some reporter, from The Athletic, from The Ringer, from somebody talking about a potential trade and a split between the two. I've seen a couple articles in the last couple of weeks on it. So all of these are very possible for the Atlanta Hawks. That could be a potential route they go. And obviously I think a lot of people, from what I consensusly see, I think a lot of people feel like the Hawks should trade one just for roster construction sakes, and if they're going to continue to get better as a franchise. The biggest thing with moving DeJounte is that there is still the concern, are you going to get the assets that you want / deserve for a guy like him? That's the biggest thing that people are wondering about. And obviously, there's some shifts that need to be made with this roster in general. And so, obviously, trading one of them could be the start of that. People are asking, if you trade one of them, is that a rebuild? I said it depends on who you trade. If you traded Young, you probably will trade Murray too, because but I don't know. Like I said, I'm not the GM. It's a tough decision. Obviously, the arguments all over Twitter today for Hawks Twitter. But overall, I think it's a question that it's going to keep being asked, and we won't know until the Hawks make that decision and we get a firm idea of what they want to do. Like I said in my last video, this may be the last couple of games that we see Trae Young and DeJounte Murray play together. Next Wednesday could be the last game we see them play together. So this may be their last few games to maybe show the front office that they can play together. Even though you have a large sample size right now, and we'll have to see what happens. So it's an interesting question. People are going to wonder about it, and everybody has their own thought process on who should go and who should stay. So it's just about whoever you feel like is best, realistically, at the end of the day. That's how I feel about it. But that's about all we have here tonight on the Believe in Hawks podcast. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, giving this another listen. Go ahead, share this with your friends. Let people know about the Believe in Hawks podcast. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Bricey_2K, BRICEY_2K. Also, do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Bricey_2K. Go ahead, follow me on Twitter, Bricey_2K as well. 2K across the board. If you're listening through audio, don't forget to leave a rating and a review. Get more people's eyes on this podcast so we can all have healthy discussion about our Atlanta Hawks and everything under the sun. So I definitely appreciate you guys tuning in. Like I said, Hawks tonight lose to the Miami Heat in double overtime, running out of gas late, getting cold late, and now look like we're going to go to Chicago for the first play-in game. But they got to bounce back as the Charlotte Hornets come into Atlanta tomorrow for the last home game of the season in Atlanta. It's your boy Bryce Lewis. See you next time.